All right, welcome back to the WB Wake Up Believes Morning Vibes. And at this time, we now engage you and invite you and expect you to come forward and offer your views, your thoughts, your opinions, your concerns, even your criticisms, complaints, and most importantly, your ideas. We urge you to utilize the on-air access points, 3 lines we have. All lines are working, JC. Last night I had problems with 2224299. Somebody told me it was just busy. Okay. All right, I don't know what was happening last night. So we have all 3 lines. The numbers are 2224299 as well as 202-4409-202-4469. Those are the direct lines for you to be a part of our conversation. And if you just happen to be unavailable to talk on air, but you have something to contribute, or you're one of those persons who have an aversion to being on the airwaves, we want you to know that we prefer for company here, but we still provide an opportunity for you to contribute. So you can utilize our Facebook page, wbmorningvibes@gmail.com, or you can link on our Facebook page. You type in WB, that's the way it works. It's easy to do, please. It's Tuesday morning. And let me remind you, or if you're new to this, let me inform you that later on the show, second segment, we've got Mr. Irvin Paris. We'll be discussing the economy, we'll be discussing money, life goals, personal finance, and all that stuff that comes up after our first break. So look forward to that. Just about around 8 o'clock, thereabouts. So first half, we get you, and we get you on the air discussing the things which mean the most to you. Sometimes it might not be what we are talking about, but don't let that prevent you from jumping in, because nobody is going to have any problem with that. We don't have any problem. Not turn your back. In fact, you are the denominator that you run things. Just jump in and express your views and thoughts and do your thing. I wanted to start off kind of like how I ended yesterday. I spent a portion of my morning talking about the situation in sugar, and I described the BSI ESR's response, at least via the news reported by Channel 7, that BSI ESR officials described the anomaly that has been picked up on by the cane farmers, showing that there was a cost being attributed to them that is really not their cost. And so I called it, they're saying that that was not supposed to be there. I described it as being an error, that they were accepting it as an error. I used that term loosely. It really was just to say that they were essentially saying that it was there like that, but that was something that had been changed a long time ago, and there was this whole misconception of the thing, and that really was not as it appeared, as some kind of fudging of the financial costs so as to in any way deceive the cane farmers. That's essentially what they were saying, but not that they were accepting that they are wrong, because they are not. They are still maintaining that the cost is the cost, and that what they are giving to the farmers is the right price, that they're giving them the right, that they're getting their just compensation according to their metrics. So there's been no backpedaling from that position at all. And if I somehow, I think I was pointed out by Ms. Sandra, who called me to ask me about where I saw that, and I had to like say, well, I wasn't saying that there was some fundamental change in their position. I was just describing it as them saying, yeah, the 1 year. But no, there's nothing substantial to their change on the matter. So I just really wanted to start out by saying that, so that there is no mix-up on that matter. We really wanted to just point out the significance, as we have done many times, because I went at length yesterday morning to describe that we people are right now just have enough, just enough space on their hard drive for their everyday realities, and they don't have space for anything else or anything bigger. It's like we hard drive full up with their own personal struggles, and when there's something big happening, like there are just a set number of individuals who will accommodate that on their hard drive. And I'm using the term hard drive to describe what it is concerns us. Because if it's not on our immediate radar, we don't really look upon anything else. We are very zoned in on that which is right before us, right enough for we everyday journey, and otherwise we can't really be bothered by it. So we're very disconnected, and we don't sometimes realize that the things which are causing challenges in your life are connected to the things which are causing challenges in other people's lives, but it's just manifesting itself in a different way. So like, for example, if there is something, like we know one way across the board that our economic struggles manifest itself. We pay a lot at the fuel pump, and we cannot escape that. So that's something that we could look and say you could get a lot of people to engage. Like if you talk about the fuel, people will hear you, and because it's something that they experience every day. Now, if you ride on bicycle, the cost of the fuel pump don't really matter to you. But it's possible that you are going to be buying stuff that will be impacted by the fuel cost, because the fuel cost is going to be transmitted to you. At the end of the day, the way how the economy is structured, our debt, and all these factors play a part in determining the kind of challenges that we face on a daily basis. The point what I try to make is that you don't always know where your pain come from, and the pain is not the way that pain works is that the pain is a symptom of an underlying problem. And so in our daily life, we face these challenges, and we don't realize that the same big topics where you're not really interested in, those are the things, and those decisions are the ones which are having an impact on you on a daily basis. But we don't really want to get engaged in those big topics and those big conversations. We prefer, we just keep it local, better. We just stick it to where they happen to me on a day-to-day basis. I don't live the Range Walk, I don't live the Cozal, I don't want to talk about sugarcane. I don't live the Toledo, I don't want to talk about illegal fishing in a Sarstone. I don't live the Cayo, I don't want to talk about where they go on a chicken boat. I don't live that San Pedro, I don't really want to talk about how the fire thing they go on out there. That's not really my priority and my concern. So we just into where they right front away. And that is just the way it is. I don't know if that the way we're wired. Maybe that is human nature, that we're kind of preoccupied with things where they're right there, obvious to the naked eye. Maybe that is the human nature and the way it works. But we know our stop said that we have to lift up our head, and we have to look around, and we have to start to say with other people's struggles connected to for we struggle. Because the forces which control, the elite forces where dictate, and the elite forces where they shape the pain where we feel, these forces are very conscious of the entire field. They have that complete consciousness. But we have Ms. Corey online, so I go immediately to her. Good morning, Ms. Corey.
Good morning, darling. Most your listeners need to understand this. Well, there may be more, but there are three, at least that I know of, and this has been with consultation with the sugar farming community, that are facing the farmers in the issue of the money they will receive. One, there is the first fact at the top of this calculation methodology. There's a formula for calculating what Belize will receive when it sells to the European Union, even though now we are not under the preferential pricing agreement. But common sense would tell you the European Union is investing in fair trade in Belize. It still is. And so that alone means that the European Union has a vested interest in the sugar industry of this country. You see that, don't you?
Yeah.
The very fact that they are putting in money into rectifying child labor and other unfair practices and to ensure that the product that goes to their shelves does not come tainted with any kind of corruption, etc. So there's a formula, and according to the formula, under the current formula arrangements, the price that the farmers in their calculation should have received is $535 US a ton of sugar, bearing in mind that 1 ton of sugar at the current, I think the last sugar cane to sugar ratio was 10 tons to a ton of sugar. Of course, that goes up and down depending on the climate and on the amount of sucrose accumulated in the sugar cane, etc. But using the 10 ton to 1 ton of sugar, you can see where the effect of that would be. So, but the factory issued to them a figure that was $200 less at $335 a ton of sugar. So that is the first discrepancy that has their concern. How come, according to the European Union formula, we ought to be receiving 535 and we are only receiving 335? The second problem is on
US, right, Ms. Coy? That's US.
That's US, darling. Yeah. And bear in mind that the sugar industry is the only industry in this country that is obliged by law to turn over its US currency to the government, immediately forming that forms part of the foreign reserves, right? If that were done with all industries, we would not be in the mess that we are in part mode, because we are borrowing. On top of borrowing to steal, we are also borrowing to maintain the foreign reserves. Because if we don't have enough coming in the export sector, then they go and borrow. For me, that is the most lunatic way of running an economy. But that is what they do. Secondly, so $200 per ton of sugar is being lost. Now let us come to the volume of sugar. According to the European Union quarterly report, not the cane farmer's imagination, not my imagination, not your imagination, not our whim and desire. According to black and white figures coming out of the European Union, they received 121,000 tons of sugar from Belize, according to the European Union figures. But according to the factory figures, they sold only 95,000 tons. That's a difference of 26,000 tons, right or wrong? Hello?
Yes.
Yes. So now there's a discrepancy in the pricing, there's a discrepancy in the volume reported. Now it's the European Union, the buyer, saying that they bought 121 million tons, 121,000 tons. And the factory is giving a figure 26,000 tons short. Then there is a third problem, which is the problem you refer to. where they are being charged for freight when, according to their understanding, that $11 million is the factory's cost. So when you do a multiplication on the total amount that they should have sold the European Union, then you come up, when you do the calculation there is a 37.38%, a few figures afterwards, they are short that amount more. This is what is being, this country ends up at a shortfall. Because remember, the income is, certain expenses are taken out first, and then after that, the remainder is split on a 60, I think it's 65-35 proportion farmer and factory. You see? So you have these are three problems. Now there may be other problems, but at least those three immediately manifest themselves. So isn't it logical? These people are not, I am not, you are not, we're not asking unfair question of the factory until you present the figures based on the European Union's report, and until all of that is clarified, we unfortunately have to go with what the farmers are saying, because they are basing their claim on objective data recorded publicly. You understand? And this is all our concern, Mo, because that money, one, forms part of our foreign reserves. Two, if the farmers don't get, if they end up at a loss mode, I don't know what anybody else thinks, but I know, I don't believe, I know that those people will be forced to turn big time to the criminal economy in order to make up the loss. They have already done it in the past. They did it in the past. And the North, that money, the income from all of that is spread all around this country. You know, more 30.
Well, it is the little bit of profit that they still have in the cane industry that forms a firewall against the mess that exists in Mexico.
Well put. And more, that $45 would immediately increase. When I did my first basic calculation, it would go, I was basing it on 40%, but it's at 37.38%, the difference between what they got and what they haven't gotten. And most, I take your listeners back 39 years. In 1979, when my mother closed down Colonial Insurance and took to the road to go and meet with the different clients on the roster, one of those clients was the first person to buy $1 million policy. I don't know if the first person to buy $1 million policy in the whole in insurance period or only with her company. But what struck me was that she said that when they drove into the yard, it was a thatched roof building, and there were vehicles in the yard, and out stepped this gentleman, a Hispanic person, and my mother said she sat there and the tears started to well up in her eyes, because this man had done a pioneering thing. The North Mode, because of the money that came in with sugar and later the money that came in with marijuana, have always been at the cutting edge of taking this country places. The BCP doesn't know this, but they've done it. They've really done it, Mo. And they've been in a crisis for almost those 30 years, 39 years since. You see, with the fall, and then there's the willful permission on the part of the government to allow the criminal economy to take off in that way, simply because they didn't have the moral fiber to sit down and work out a solution. So there's no question now. When they went into the criminal economy big time before, it was with Belizean marijuana. This time it's not Belizean marijuana. If they start to grow Belizean marijuana, it will enter into immediate competition with the Mexican marijuana coming across the border. So let us say that's what happened. That's going to produce a war of, this country cannot understand the war that is raging in Mexico as they compete for the market share in the illegal drug industry. So let us say they go Belize marijuana. But then let us say they don't do that and then just go for the Mexican marijuana to expand the market. Any which way you look at it more, the North will become, it will become the final straw in the criminal coffin of this country. That is what will happen. So I can't speak for anybody else. My interest in this is not mischievous, it's not malicious, it's not deceitful. It is simply looking at history and looking at people's needs. Those people's children traveling every day to this city. Some of them get up at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, 4. They don't get back home until 8 at night. Marriage has been put on the, mating has been put in jeopardy. Child raising has been put in jeopardy. What's your name, Moose? I mean, it is just incredible. And the leadership of this country just sits on the wayside, only worried about a vote. That is all, because I am at a loss to understand why you're not going to get immediately on the ball. And more, this is an appeal now. The union, all of you, maybe you think that doesn't matter. It does. That's $48 million. Multiply 200, the $200 not accounted for by the entire $121 million, and you come out with $24,200,000 US, right? And it may be more, but I'm using that figure that they gave. Multiply that by the figure the farmers say the European Union says they bought. And who better to tell you what they bought than the buyer, right? Why would the buyer be telling you a lie? He is PUP, UDP, or any P at all. That's number one. So then there is that. We have the foreign reserve issue. We have the borrowing issue to keep the foreign reserve intact. These are all seriously connected matters that should concern all labor unions in this country. It should concern the Chamber of Commerce in this country and any private. It should concern the Association of Banks in this country. Because your clients are not going to be able to pay the loan, and the North industrial economy will collapse. And where will the money come from then? Where will your clientele come from? They won't be there. The Insurance Association of this country should immediately, along with the banks, the Chamber of Commerce, the trade unions, and other parties, the medical association, lend support asking for the presentation of figures. Let us see the figures. Let us give us all the data. And then also simultaneously reach out to the administrative offices of the European Union that collect this data and that make these arrangements so we can have all this information corroborated. It is, I don't see how we can see that this is a serious, serious matter. It's just heartbreaking, honestly it is.
Thank you very much, Ms. Corey. It's 21 minutes after 7 o'clock. This is the WUB Wake Up Belize Morning Vibes, inviting your telephone numbers, inviting you to call in to telephone numbers 222-4299 as well as 202-4409 and 202-4469. Krem, good morning.
Hi, good morning, Maud.
Good morning.
How are you today?
Fonetta, how are you doing?
I'm fine, thanks.
Stranger.
Been a while.
Yup. Yup. That's an understatement, sister.
I just had a long conversation with JC. We were catching up.
Oh man, not listen. I can't imagine that you all were on the phone long enough to catch up to everything. But yeah, I imagine you're wearing the hat of.
No,
No. Oh.
no. I'm just wearing the hat of support for a group of sports enthusiasts.
Okay. You see why they tell you in life never to assume.
Yes, you should have. Could be complicated at times. So, the 20th Central American Volleyball Championship is underway.
Yeah.
You made it to any of the games yet?
No, I've not.
Okay, you should. Should go out and see your female talent that's out there.
100% they were there. I know that we had the game to win, the first one, and it kind of slipped away from us. But we are righting the ship, and I'm glad about that.
Yes, they won the past 2 games.
Yeah. So
last night and Sunday.
yeah.
So they're on a winning streak right now.
Excellent.
Of course, all the results and all the information about the games are available on the association's Facebook page,
Okay.
Belize Volleyball Association. So they keep it fairly updated. Information was posted this morning.
Didn't know that you had become involved like this, Juanita. Whoa.
Like I said, I'm just doing
You should never.
support in terms of promoting an opportunity here.
Okay.
I'm assisting a group of enthusiasts.
Okay.
So we have a group of people who've decided that they want to give some high school students the opportunity to witness the games.
Okay.
Come out and support.
Okay.
Tomorrow we are playing Guatemala. So that's going to be a big game. I think that one you should definitely try to make it to most.
That's going to be at what time?
It starts at 7:30
At 7:30.
at the Civic.
Okay.
So Belize versus Guatemala. So we have a group of people who.
How are they going to determine? How are they going to determine place who wins the tournament, or is there going to be like a playoff? So it's just.
Well, I'm not that versed in volleyball, Mom. You should know this. But the information is online
Okay.
on Facebook. I know that tonight we're playing Costa Rica.
All right.
That's a big game.
That's a
Costa
tough
Rica
match,
is in
yeah.
the lead.
Yeah.
And if we beat Costa Rica tonight and we beat Guatemala tomorrow,
Then
then
should
we'll
be
be
in a
playing for
good.
the championship.
We should, yeah, that should put us right where we want to be.
Yeah.
So we're going to clap Costa Rica tonight. What time is that game?
7:30. The games are 7:30.
At 7:30. Okay, all the games at 7:30. So is it one game a night, or is it? Our game is at 7:30.
Yeah. Just check the
Go
listing online. Yeah.
go online. You keep driving me to the internet. Okay.
Go online.
All right.
I don't want to misinform anybody. So
Don't
my
do-
objective is to promote some tickets that we have more.
You have
We have
tickets.
1,000 tickets. We have some sponsors who have decided that they want to give an opportunity to as many high school students as possible.
Uh-huh.
So we have 1,000 tickets available for any high school student who wants to witness the game tomorrow night between Belize and Guatemala.
So somebody or some people bought
We have
1,000 tickets to give away.
Yes, we have a group of people. I could give you some of the names of the donors.
Okay.
We have people like Jim Scott, Paulo Musa, Alvan Haynes, Michelle Young, Paul Jones, Harold Young, Steve Duncan, and some others. They've decided to put up some of their own money to purchase tickets, 1,000 tickets, and it's for high school students. All they need to do is show up at the Civic tomorrow for the 7:30 game between Belize and Guatemala, show their high school ID, and they enter for free. So 1,000 tickets available for high school students tomorrow. You're also invited, Mons.
Okay, well, I'll buy my own ticket if I make it there.
Yes, bring your team.
I'll
Bring
buy,
your crew.
I'll buy my own. But yeah, that's a great initiative, and again, taking the opportunity to invite other Belizeans to come out and support our star volleyballers, represent us in this tournament. So It's a great game tonight, an important game, and as with all sporting events, a good home crowd support is going to enhance the team's performance and enhance their chances. It pushes them a little further, so more people the better.
Come and support our female athletes.
And you say it for people to go online if they want information. Can you tell
Yes.
us where online you go? You know, online is a wide place.
Facebook, the Belize Volleyball Association Facebook page has updated information. It was just
Okay.
updated this morning, so
Okay.
all the stats are right there.
You know, if,
Belize Volleyball.
listen, if they've been able to get Bonita on board, then we all need to jump in.
Yes, it's a good cause, Mons, and we want our students to come out. It's a summer, something positive to do, nationalistic to do. Everybody come out. Bring your high school ID. 1,000 tickets available for high school students to witness Belize against Guatemala tomorrow. 7th.
Imagine, JC, it took a volleyball tournament for us to hear from Bonita again in our lives, JC.
Yes.
Can you imagine that, JC?
It's real.
Thank goodness for the volleyball tournament. What would we have done?
I'm sorry.
JC!
I won't say anything furthermore.
JC!
Yeah.
My goodness!
We couldn't do anything until this event, man.
Shucks.
So we'll see you there. We'll see you and JC tomorrow.
We'll do our best, Bonita. Thanks very much for the call and for the information. And again, we encourage for high schoolers, it's tomorrow, you get a chance. 1,000 high schoolers can get in free.
Yes.
And if you're not a high schooler, because you know, as you notice, I'm not in high school anymore. What is the cost to get into the game?
I think it's about $5 per ticket.
You better be careful with people ticket prices, Bonita. I would not, if you're not
So
sure.
I would leave that to Mr. Sharp. I'll have Mr. Sharp confirm that information.
Yeah.
Okay?
Well, I hope that somebody at least that knows the price for sure would call in and say the
Yes,
price.
I'll do that.
Or maybe the price
I'll
is
stick to
on.
my role. I'll stick to my role.
Yeah, what you should have done is just to say as you have done for all other questions, the information is online.
Online.
Yeah, you can't go wrong. The information is online. So please scratch out that $5 that was suggested, but we don't know that for a fact.
Don't repeat it if we're not sure, Mos. Don't repeat it.
I
But I slipped, you know. I gotten away with it.
the great Vonetta, DJ V, right? JC, that's what she was. No, yeah, DJ V, give us a call.
Nice talking to you, Mos and JV.
Same here. Take
Same
care.
Look out for you tomorrow at the game.
That's the third.
Please help us to promote to the students. Bring your
Alright.
ID, get in for free.
All right. Let's support our team. Tonight is Costa Rica. Not only tomorrow night. Of course, tomorrow night is important. Tonight is Costa Rica, and tomorrow night it's Guatemala.
Yes.
All right. Well done.
Okay. Take
Great.
care. All right.
Krem, good morning, WUB.
Yeah, greetings, Brother Moses. Greetings, Belize. Patrick Rogers here.
Morning, my brother.
Morning. I had to call in solidarity with Sister Sandra's Curry statements that she made. And if I could just add my little 2 cents, Mose. The accounting where ASR, DSI using needs to be investigated. In other countries, there's antitrust laws that corporations are held accountable and ensure that they become good corporate citizens. But what we're experiencing here, what is played out in what is referred to as banana republics, any avid reader of history would know that when you hear the term banana republic, you think about Central America, you think about one strongman kind of dictator, whether he democratically elected or not, you know, and geopolitical forces that play control in them. That is what Belize is today, one banana republic. So when you saw the producers wanting to own their factory and they weren't allowed to, instead the government bully in ASR, because if Belize recall, the farmers were organized in such a way they had the financing in place to have bought ASR. But what ASR represents, Belize, is one of the last foreign direct investment in this country that once they invest, they want to come in with concession, fiscal incentives, which means that ASR, for example, won't pay any taxes to this country for 10 years. They have gotten concessions with whatever new investments they put in this country, no import duties. All of that is fine and good to an extent. But the point is that the farmers were in a position to own that factory. Now, the problem with Belize, I'm going to explain this as simply as I could, Mose. There are economic vehicles that you use under capitalism because economics is married to the politics that control the territory. So there's no difference between economics and politics when you're talking to somebody like me. I'm saying that the economic vehicles of choice in this country are one corporation. One corporation is owned by 2, 5 people, whatever, 100 people, but one limited amount of people. The corporations own the means of production, and then the poor producers, they are being squeezed out of their land right now because the move what ASR did do, what they're doing a banana republic, then cook the books like this so that the poor farmers end up losing their land. Who want to buy up the land? ASR. And bam, you see them go from 20 to 30% of the productive capacity to 70 to 80%. Because everywhere else around us, the corporations that own sugar factories end up producing somewhere between 70 to 90% of the cane that they will mill. So Belize is on that fast track now to have ASR owning 70 to 80% of the lands under production. And the way they're going to do it is to steal 34 million US from us because it's a 24 million by cooking the books and 11 million that they want to pass shipping costs to the producers now, which is when they want to take all the money for the bag of sale and things, then so they own the cane fund and get it from the farmers. Now all of a sudden, the farmer that want pardon now will have to pay a freight shipping cost. That is crazy. 33 million US, 35 million US stolen by ASR. And now they're going to be on the media claiming they're reinvesting, well, not reinvesting, they're capitalizing to the tune of 28 million more, some facility they were building. I'm saying that we need to take one time out to assess what Sandra said, Mose. She's saying that when crimes are committed with the pen, what are millions and millions of dollars, we can expect one direct correlation with the crime in the street that is being committed with the gun. So the more the type of pen crime go up, the more the gun crime go up. And you want to see the youth man start think straight, you hold ASR accountable, put them under investigation, and if it is found that they're culpable in trying to steal the nation and the farmers out of revenues, then you revoke their concession and readdress having the farmers own that factory. Most, it's as simple as taking away the law when mandate that producers has to be organized as associations instead of cooperatives. Every sector of this economy has an association legislative. Citrus growers, association. Banana growers, association. Cane farmers, association. Only the fishing sector are fortunate enough as a cooperative that they own their productive facilities. So I'm saying that we really need to look at decolonizing this territory and look at the economic vehicles of choice we're using. Every one of them companies, whether the corporations were shut down, most could be turned into cooperative with the workers owning it in tandem with the state until they could take over full ownership. But I don't want to hang up on the line because I love to listen to Brother Irving Paris. One of these days, I hope he and I can have one sit down so we can look at how we could Belizeanize some of the things that he's talking about. I love the fact that he's introducing new financial products in the country, and I tip my hat to him. But I think man like Belinda and me need to talk to Irving Leave it to make you understand that you need to Belizeanize on a lot of the business subjects that you studied abroad.
Do we understand, Brother Patrick? And I don't want you to feel the need to jump off. I have tremendous respect for your ideas and your expertise. Do we understand how easy it is for I think it was that Joe Tex sing the song "Hold On to What You Got"?
Yes.
I think that's Joe Tex, right? Joe Tex, you know the whole time classics. We have lost a lot.
A lot.
And so the consequences of those losses we feel every day. But still we're living at this kind of a mentality where we think because we have it, well, it's safe. And we don't understand how easy it is for the present equity that the cane farmers have in the sugar industry to be lost. Like we don't understand like 1-2 bad financial compensation for their crops, and they're gone. And they're gone. You lose it very quickly. And I think the understanding I get is that there was once a time when the land was the anachronism, where the model then was we were just the workers. So as you mentioned, the means of production was controlled by the colonizer, the land was controlled by the colonizer, and essentially all you were to do was to chop the cane for them.
Yeah.
That's how it was. So then you move to a point now where, at least in the north, the land was owned by the cane farmers, most of it.
Yeah.
Now, as you have described it, we had this opportunity where there was this talk about, can we figure out how the cane farmers can now own the factory? The government decided, guess what? We don't believe that, and I think Irvin Perez has made this point multiple times, that that's our colonial mentality. We don't believe that we can. We believe that we need to have somebody come in to do that for us, because we can't do that. We don't believe in our in our own abilities. We don't believe in it. So we decided, okay, so we're going to bring in ASR. But as you've described it, a corporation is wired in a certain way. For me, you know, you can describe and say a corporation, oh, it's evil and this, but a corporation, when you bring a corporation, especially a foreign corporation, you know what you're getting. You know what their business model is. You know what they want. They want to be optimized, and to be optimized means they want to control everything. It's for me, Brother Patrick, it's the equivalent of saying, you know, sometimes you have one little poodle, but you decide, guess what, boy, and entire I need to get one pit bull.
Yeah.
You don't trust your poodle. You know your poodle might yak, but you know the poodle, you say, I guess what, but if something comes down to it, you can't handle. So you bring on pit bull. So you have a pit bull in the yard, you have a poodle in the yard, and you say, oh, I love my poodle, but you throw out the food in the yard and you go sleep, as if though you don't know what a pit bull is and you don't know what a poodle is. It's a negligent, irresponsible owner that does not care about the fact that you have a pit bull with its nature, that your poor poodle is going to be ravaged. It's just
eaten.
It's
eaten alive.
It's just the way it's wired. So somebody who understands, or comes to the point where they accept, I'm going to bring a pit bull in the yard, knows, guess what? I will have to intervene to make sure, because I love my poodle, I have to make sure that my poodle is straight. So my poodle want to eat, you know, here we're protected, and I want to make sure that my pit bull eat one certain way, because I don't want that the nature of that pit bull to cause damage to my poodle. No, it's not a perfect analogy, but it's to say,
no, but
when
I love
you
it, because when I say regulate the corporations, it might fly over somebody's head. The way you say, that is it right there. If you do not regulate the pit bull, you know, make sure he fence off, and then the lead man fence off, he can get eaten alive.
You want to get up that morning and find your poodle in pieces. Exactly. That's what's going to happen. But, and so the responsibility when you bring a pit bull into the yard, because your argument is that we don't have the capacity, we can't do it, then that's a different conversation. We don't believe that, but this is what has been said to us. We need these people. We need them to run the company. And you understand the nature of corporations. It's about profit above everything.
Everything.
That's the nature of the corporation. Now it comes in, and you want to play hands off. You're going to play. You want to play like you want to play one long distance. Pitbull make me poodle eat then, man. Yeah, man. Wanna work it out, no, man. That is to be incredibly irresponsible, because what you're inviting is carnage. You're inviting carnage, man. That's what you're going to get. And for us to understand the implications to our economy, if we lose our stake in the cane industry, that is That is a wall coming down. That's
You know that it benchmark our economy because the tourism sector, where they bring in the trickle in, not to contribute as much U.S. reserves to the government to pay the bills. So outside of the sugar industry, none of the other industries where export products have the government taking control of the U.S. currency and give them back Belize. So if they want to expatriate profits, it becomes difficult for them, right? They have all the money abroad, and then they only bring in what they need to cover operating costs. But more, I want to touch on just two other things quickly before they're on the line.
Got you.
I went to re-register the 1st of August. The process was smooth with a passport. The passport, you don't need nothing else pretty much. You go with your birth certificate, you need your social security card, and then if you not got your birth certificate, that's a problem, that is. But I want to encourage people to get out there and re-register, man, because it is so important. I know a lot of people disenfranchised from the political process wasn't registered under the old role, no? But this issue of the ICJ, the one critical issue, and I believe that all Belizeans over 18 should enfranchise themselves and find a way to the nearest school, because over the summer months that the school buildings, the elections and boundaries utilizing to conduct this initial registration 2-3 months before they compile the new roll. If you find yourself at a school there right now that no lot of traffic and no lot of delays, quick process in and out, please do that so that you're prepared to go at this referendum. And now, of course, I get silence on a lot, so please give me only 2 minutes to explain that the BPP position hasn't changed, Belize. We have always maintained that the compromise is the problem. The term they use to refer to the document should signal something at you, the compromise. It's a treaty that was labeled one special agreement and dubbed the compromise. But from 2008, we were calling, the principals in the BPP have been independent a long time, as you know that, and we were calling to get this damn special agreement to the Senate. Under Belize laws, all treaties must be ratified by the Senate. And we were scorned upon, and they looked for laws that England was sure that the executive now have to take this thing to get ratified, and a special treaty. No special treaty, it needed to be ratified. Now, at the point of getting it ratified is where we had hope. All these issues that you hear coming up right now, including diaspora and vote in this special referendum, could have been tabled before it is passed at the Senate mode. But at the ending of it, they slip it through the Senate way down in 2016, 8 years after it was signed, without no lot of fanfare, and after it had already been amended twice to appease the Guatemalan. So there you see Guatemala get 2 chances to have amended the special agreement terms to their favor, including Belize removing one threshold on referendum for it to be valid, where, make it where if 3 people go vote and 2 vote yes and 1 vote no, Belize is after the ICJ, risking more than half a territory to litigation. But we need to make Belize understand, 1974, under CIA control, genocidal generals with one greed for Belizean land, Guatemala took a hardline position that there can be no settlement of this Anglo-Guatemalan dispute as it was at that time, unless the territory of British Honduras ceded land. Now, since then, those generals who were dictators have emerged as congressmen in the Congress controlling the legislative arm of Guatemala's government. There was a time when they even dared to be presidents, like the last one, Efrain Rios-Montt, that you see up on charges and stuff. But they found it that make we try get one democratically elected president, but we still control the Congress. So that's what we saw happen in 1985 when Benicio Cerezo was elected as the first democratically elected Guatemalan president. This gentleman immediately started real negotiation at the executive level and laid the foundation for Belize to get 2 of the 3 things we need from Guatemala. We needed Guatemala to respect her sovereignty, we needed Guatemala to respect her independence, and we needed Guatemala to respect her territorial integrity. Well, the work of Benicio Cerezo was continued by Jorge Serrano, who effectively signed the executive document. These were the 2 democratically elected presidents not being controlled by the generals. So, of course, they wanted friendly relations with Belize so Petén could develop like Quintana Roo did in Mexico, and like Cancun was built through Belize port. So these gentlemen negotiating in good faith brought Belize 2 out of 3 requests that we had. They couldn't give us the territorial one because Jorge Serrano was kicked out of office. They claimed corruption, but then could claim with any other president. And then rolled the man out because he did not bring land. He took them the Maritime Areas Act, which effectively saw Belize ceding territory in the seas. And well, they already had effective use of the Ranguana and Zapadilla keys. So they had keys and seas, but no land. And the general's hardline position of no settlement unless land is ceded maintained. So then they started taking people like Jimmy Morales, where they could control and bring from nowhere, make president, and have him pushing their hardline position of let's settle this thing with land being ceded. Belize, if we wait just not too long, and be long, 1 generation, UNCAC is at work in Guatemala. They're a republic with separation of powers, so their judiciary is independent and jailing these corrupt generals and other politicians. So in a short while, Guatemala will have a Congress that is fully civilian controlled, democratically elected civilians, not from the military. And they will have one democratically elected president. Until we are at the table with one civilian-controlled Congress of Guatemala and one civilian president of Guatemala, I will not accept that all attempts at negotiation have failed, arbitration have failed, mediation have failed. Of course, it will fail when Belize's position is that we will not cede land. Guatemala position is that land needs to be ceded. Now, in the middle of all of this, Belize, in the middle of all of this, the genesis of this thing, regardless of what anybody wants to say on Article 7 in the 1859 treaty, that England never wanted in there, that Guatemala put in there, that the U.S. wanted in there. It's called one compensatory clause. England did one supplementary treaty 2 years later, which showed that they validated the fact that Article 7 was one compensatory clause in that boundary treaty. So yes, the boundary treaty is valid. What is not valid is Article 7 hasn't been fulfilled. England is not at the table. Who will argue acquisitive prescription? What means squatters' right? Are the British with them, Mike, that the only European power use that? No other European power use acquisitive prescription. Squatters' right. Historical consolidation, again, that one conversation for another time. Also, when I explained to her that only the Boundaries Commission from Guatemala signature is on there. The Minister of Foreign Affairs reported, I have seen the report. No president accepted it, no Congress ratified it. So we run and registered on a one-sided document where we use to back up historical consolidation. Those 2 positions needed the British at the table at the ICJ defending those. We can defend self-determination, independence, 1981, when we took the reins. But we didn't have the reins in 1931 and in 1859. The British did, and they should be at the table at the ICJ if and when we reach there, defending those positions. So, of course, we want no to the ICJ, reset the button, do a new special agreement, having the British at the table with monetary compensation as an option for the ICJ judges, and then let's go to the ICJ. Believe it could be 30 years from now when Guatemala have one civilian government controlling the Congress and one civilian president. Isn't that sense, most? I know a crazy position.
That's a whole lot.
No, I'm just saying, because I know they get one break with the presentation. I offered to the foreign minister. I offered to the international affairs, Stuart Leslie and Ambassador Murphy. We never get an invitation. And I'm saying the BNTU, thank God for them in their wisdom, they needed information. They conducted 9 forums around this country since 2016, before the ratification of the amendment, of the compromise. So I would love to see the other unions take the initiative, extend invitation to some of the no presenters out there like myself, Mr. Paul Morgan, Hubert Enriquez, Bobby Will. All of we out here willing to do presentations on the no to the ICJ. And we're not crazy. All of we love Belize as much, if not more than these Queen lovers does. So I'm saying, make we be real. Patrick Rogers, they offer yourself to anybody who want to listen to 5 minutes, 15, 20, half an hour, our presentation, and why we shouldn't go to the ICJ at this point in time under that compromise, and what are the alternatives that Belize have before us, because we got a lot of alternatives we've been presented since 2008. With that, I'm going to get off of the line. I listen to Brother Irving. I love you, Belize. Freedom for all, equal rights and justice.
Graham, good morning. WUB.
Good morning.
Yes, sir.
Raka.
All right.
All right. First thing I want to do, I want to make one clarification because I don't tell lie. I understand that they're not GSU, that Belmopan squad. They work down here. But then are the one where beat up this Lee boy. Now, this me and my wife sit down on the veranda as usual, and then this Lee boy me going from north to south, and then they come and they stop. And when they stop, then they come jump out of the thing and go to the young boy. And when as they get to the young boy, they don't say nothing. Then just grab this young boy, dash against my fence, and start to box up this young boy. One spell, my boy backs the young boy, and when they done it, he bring up his foot in his chest with the knee. I mean, these are stupidness. We don't have to tolerate that kind of thing, yeah? You see what I mean? Why chance? Suppose they say somebody do for their family that thing there. I'm mad like hell. You know what I mean?
When did this happen, Palai?
Friday night, about 7:30.
They beat him up.
Beat up the young boy bad, man, and then they dash her in at the vehicle. You know? The young boy never had nothing, man.
Was he resisting them?
He never resist. Always when in the beater, he tried to turn around for telling her, hey, I don't have nothing. I don't have nothing. And then, man, the way how they beat that young boy, man, Roland could tell you. Because Roland said he's supposed to end in the Amandala this morning. You know? That's a craziness, man. We can't tolerate them for have. Then they make her they sell a GSU, but they're not GSU. I just understand that from Belmopan.
I mean, if the young man has did something wrong, he is to be arrested and.
But he not done nothing, Papa.
But even if he let us assume the worst and say he has done something wrong, then you arrest him and you take him.
Definitely.
But there's no need for you to.
For just beat up a person that kind of way, man. Suppose I'm for their family. They don't want anybody to do them picnic that or their brother. So tell them stop their foolishness, you know.
All right, my brother.
Because they got gun, but gun could come too.
We don't make a good thing to that in kind of.
You know what I mean?
But all right, I hear that, and we definitely against. We say it over and over and over. You could do your police work without that.
Yes, man. You don't need to.
You need to do your police work without that. Yes.
No, man. Okay, my brother.
All right.
Thank you.
Side, and now I'm joined by the great Mr. Irvin Perez, Managing Partner Legacy Fund. Morning, sir.
Yeah, good morning, Moses. Good morning, Belize.
What's
I
up?
know great is a word to use. Not much, Moses, so wanted to take a look at this. Is the first Tuesday of the month of August and the second month. Sorry, go ahead, Moses.
You had promised to give us a rundown of the commercial banks.
Yes, I'll have to delay the rundown for next week. One bank did a fantastic return to profitability, the Belize Bank, recording some income that has been earned because of the judgment, the court judgment that passed recently. So they stood out as an outlier in terms of the level of profitability that they indicated quarter by quarter. But we're going to take a full look at the banks. And when we do that next week, Mose, I want to have our audience understand that when you're looking at banks' performance, you're looking at it from where most Belizeans are not owners of banks, so we don't own banks. So we are looking at banks from a more risk perception in regards to how safe our monies are in that bank.
All right. Morning.
Morning, brother.
Yes, sir.
Good morning, Rascal.
Where you going, brother?
Cool.
Good.
I want to talk about the stevedores. I'll leave it, Aya.
All right.
Aya, when the sugar to work, when the ship come, right, it might be about a month, right? When the stevedores done in 2 weeks, talks the next weeks, talks all millions because the stevedores, they have to stop contract, they have to stop Aya because when they get 2 weeks out out of the month, when they still get nothing higher. They have to stop it higher. They have to stop the contract. Stop it. So that we could make some good money higher. Just what happened with the original people there, that the same thing will happen with we too higher. Stevedores have to come together and stop quarrel, come together and stop all the contract with talks, stop. Because the big dog that talks for them on higher. Talks don't like we not at all higher. You don't like we not at all higher. We have to come together higher. The stevedores, brother. Well, next time I attack, I'm getting better every day. I'll attack more. One love higher.
Respect, respect.
Yeah, Moses, I mean, it's quite interesting that our economy are all integrated now. The impact of what would happen up north with the sugarcane industry would impact the work that the stevedores at the port does, because the main point of shipment of sugar exports is the port of Belize. So there's a bit of an integrated economy that sometimes we fail to see the links, no, in between. But just quickly back on the banks before we go on to the topic at hand. When you're looking at a bank, and the Central Bank of Belize provides quarterly reports on all the financial institutions that are regulated. That includes the banks, the credit unions, and the international banks. So those are the institutions that are regulated by the Central Bank of Belize. And from those quarterly reports are, at the end of each quarter, and it looks at the quarterly performance of a bank. And what we would like to do is compare the current quarter with the previous quarter, and you're looking at primarily a couple of indicators. One is capital, and so from a depositor, so like I said, most Belizeans are not owners of banks, so when you're looking at a bank, you're looking at how safe is my deposits in that bank. That's kind of what you're looking at, telling our audience that Belize, unlike other Caribbean countries, does not have a deposit insurance scheme. So other Caribbean countries like Trinidad, Jamaica, have what you call a deposit insurance that protects the depositor up to a certain amount in any of the regulated financial institution. Belize has not adopted that type of insurance scheme. So it's buyer beware, meaning that as a depositor who puts your money in the banks, you need to look at the bank's performance primarily, especially you're looking at capital adequacy. So how much buffer? So what is capital for any institution or any enterprise? Capital is the amount of stake that the owners have in the business, right? So just from a common sense perspective, if the owners have a lot of stake in the business, meaning they've put a lot of money in the business relative to what they've borrowed, right, there is less risk for those who have lent them money. And most Belizeans are lenders to the banks, although we see the banks as our main creditor because we borrow from them. We also lend the banks money through saving, deposits, etc. So from that perspective, the more the owners have in the bank in terms of their own equity, their own monies that they've contributed to the bank, the more buffer you have in case of, as we had in the late 2008, 2009, when the economy basically collapsed because of the global meltdown and we had the impact locally, and the banks had tremendous non-performing loans. That was a lot of loss to the banks. That was absorbed by the bank's capital. So the owners took the initial loss of those excesses, and therefore the banks with the strongest buffers, the banks that had most capital, would have been able to absorb those losses more significantly before it would have impaired any other performance of the bank. So we started at capital, and then obviously from a individual looking at the reports that central bank provides, you want to look at the quality of the bank's assets, and the quality of the bank assets is done primarily, our banks are primarily lenders, so their largest asset on the balance sheet would be loan portfolio. So you want to look at the loans that are non-performing, so loans that are not doing well relative to loans that are doing well. That's a ratio. Usually a ratio of 3% or less, meaning that the non-performing loans to performing loans is 3% or less is good sign. There's always going to be some challenges in the economy. That's what you call non-systemic. So, you know, a business is in an industry that's having a terrible time. So let's say the shrimp industry is having a bad time. So you would understand that their loans will not be performing. You know, they may rebound from that and get into a better situation. So there's always going to be some non-performing loans on a bank balance sheet. But if the bank is doing a good job, usually that would be 3% or less. If it's above that, then as a depositor or anybody analyzing the bank, you want to be somewhat concerned, because one then, not only in terms of the absolute value, but the trend. So that's why you want to always compare quarter over quarter. Is the non-performing loan performance improving? So is it going from 8% to 5%, for example? So for example, it may be above your 3%, but it's trending in the right direction. Or is it the quarter before it was 3%, and now this quarter it's 7%, so that's trending in the wrong direction. So those are things that we're going to take a better look at next week when we look at the bank. But again, from our perspective, we are primarily savers in the banks, not owners. So we're looking from that perspective. If we were owners of the bank, we would have been looking at the return on equity. You know, what is the return, what is the dollar return I'm getting per my dollar invested? So, and we do take a look at that with banks as well, even as a depositor, because banks that are generating a good return on their investment tend to mean that they're doing well and will tend to get stronger, you know, as banks. Yeah. So we had mentioned that there was some issues up north with the sugarcane industry, and I think in our conversation we were talking about what is the overall national strategy for the sugarcane industry, and I don't know if that has been articulated by anybody, whether it's the sugarcane farmers or the government or just the broader society at large. Is the consideration there that we're going to stay in this industry for the long haul, but we're going to increase the kind of value-added products that we do? So, you know, you have to develop a strategy for an industry, and I know that some time ago, before the preferential market was going to be taken away, there was work being done or trying to be done about what they call the industry strategy. So where is the industry going to go facing a more competitive environment? And some key documentation was done, and there was some draft strategy developed. I don't know if it was signed off by all stakeholders, and there was a component for financial institutions to play in that strategy. So you have a broad strategy of what you're going to do with an industry, and there are all these different stakeholders who have to play a role and what role they're going to play. So there was a draft strategy outline. I don't know if it was ever formally adopted by all the stakeholders. Was it articulated to the broader community? I doubt it. I read a component of the strategy. But from a nationalistic perspective, in that strategy, did we have definitively that our intent is for Belize to have a ownership stake in the industry, a significant ownership stake in the industry, so Belizeans too, and that we would participate in the further development of the industry from just raw commodity sugar to now there's more refined sugar to even going further and starting to use the sugar for sugar products, and therefore your value added goes up. So those things I don't think have been articulated. I think I did not catch the contribution by Ms. Koye in terms of the numbers that are being provided, which would indicate that there is a discrepancy in terms of what the sugarcane farmers are getting in terms of their final payments relative to what their final payments should be. Now, again, you and I spoke about this. Who is the final arbiter of the numbers? I mean, I'm not certain. Is there a impartial regulatory body that has the technical skills to be able to determine if the sugarcane farmers are being paid what they should have, and therefore would fine or penalize ESR for underpaying? Those are the things when you create an industry, especially when you're creating one that has some kind of monopolistic structure involved, that you want to ensure is in place, right? Because otherwise it becomes the technical people from the sugarcane farmer saying one thing and the producer and the miller saying another thing. Who then determines who is right? And then if somebody is not playing with a full deck or playing with clean hands, then who then penalizes the bad player, right? So those are questions that now, I guess this is good because it's happening now, and there's going to be future sugar cycles or sugar seasons and payments. And so these are things that should be addressed now. I think by not only as the sugarcane farmers have said, this is something that needs to be addressed by the broader.
Why should they? But this is so fundamental to a partnership.
Yeah.
The forthcomingness of data and numbers, and the legitimacy of it and the accuracy of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, this is a prerequisite. This is like as standard as it gets.
You would think so, Mose, but you can always play with numbers.
Yes.
And we understand that.
Yes, but
I can take a number and torture it to get certain things that I want to see. I could factor in costs that may not be reasonable.
But as you pointed out last week, that there is such a mystery that surrounds the numbers that comes out of the company, out of the factory.
There is a mystery with the numbers. You know, we track, our firm tracks the traded sugar price every day, daily. It's traded, it's a global commodity, and you can see those numbers. But I've not been able to figure how those numbers translate back to what the sugarcane farmer gets. And so I would think that there should be a clear and transparent
it's not quantum physics. It's not quantum physics, my brother.
Clear and transparent formula that anybody, you know, that should be a public information. Anybody could go and see, okay, this is how it's computed. These are the factors. That are attributed in costs, and we can calculate it back to the point where there is some. We know at the sugar factory there is a kind of quality payment component. Now that's where it might get a little bit tricky. But again, if there is a transparent way on how they pay for quality, then we should be able to independently verify the information. And that's what you would want to have. Like I'm saying, I think it should be important that the sugarcane farmers have the technical expertise to have been able to forecast their numbers, to have said.
But they're saying they have a number. They're saying that they're at the difference appears to be like about a 200 US between what the
200 US per sugarcane farmer? Oh, per ton. Okay then.
200 US.
So we need that number.
That's
we
the
need that
disparity
number to
between
come back to. We need they need to get that number back to their final payment price. What do I mean by that? You paid me $4 or $6 as my final payment. You should have paid me $8, and the difference is the $2. Because when they're still throwing out a number out there that still hasn't given us to get us to the final payment number, and that's where I think they're technical. I'm not saying they don't have. They probably do. But what I would want to recommend for them is going forward that they should forecast that number. So you know, Mose, like you throw the number to the public long before you get paid. So you're saying this is my number and this is our expectations, and you could tell it to your banker because the sugarcane farmers have to be financed, right? So a banker needs to have an idea of what you're going to get the final payment.
Ms. Corey is online. Welcome back, Ms. Corey.
Yes, good morning.
There are this time it's not, I don't think that it's lack of technical expertise at this point, Irvin.
Okay.
The European Union issues quarterly reports on their, not only sugar, other purchases, etc., in the financial sector of their affairs.
Okay.
And in the report of the quarter that deals with the current financial year, they indicated that they bought from Belize 121,000 tons of sugar.
Okay.
But the factory indicated that they only sold 95,000 tons of sugar. That's a discrepancy of 26,000 tons of sugar.
Oh, okay.
Now, another factor but the farmers get paid per ton of cane, and that is decided by the sucrose yield. How many tons of sugar of cane it took to produce a ton of sugar, and that varies. If it is a year when there's a lot of rain, it will dilute the sucrose. So you're going to need more cane to get the ton of sugar. In another year, when you have just the appropriate amount of sugar of rain, let us say, you're going to maybe have 9, 8 tons. So you're going to get more sugar from less sugar cane. You see? And so that's their first problem. The first problem is there are 3 problems. The problem is costly calculations.
Okay.
Their calculations are showing 535 US per ton of sugar, but the factory's figures are $200 less at 335. And I did an independent calculation, not knowing they were doing it with all figures, and I had come up with 507. So that puts their figure, in my estimation, in a correct ballpark. That's calculation of payment, base payment. Then there is the volume. The European Union reported they received 121,000 tons, somewhat with a couple of figures after that. And the factory is reporting 95,000. That's a discrepancy they are obliged to explain.
Yes.
Then there is the discrepancy on charges. Charges that the farmers understood were the charges of the factory have suddenly become the charges of the farmer. So that's the 11 million. So that alone there represents 35 million US. And then, of course, that is all part of the foreign reserve problem and so on. Bye-bye.
Oh, so excellent work, I think, done by Ms. Coy there in terms of giving the sugarcane farmers some information that now requires explanation. And so we still reach the point, though, in determining, is there a third party that has some kind of final say as whose numbers are right? So assuming ASR BSI comes forward and explains these discrepancies or these different numbers. So for example, is 121,000 tons of sugar only from ASR BSI, or maybe that have included some Santander sugar? Don't know. What is the period in which this 121 tons were purchased by the EU? Is it specific to this particular sugar cycle? So those are some of the questions that I think would want ASR BSI to clarify. Why is there this difference of 535 versus 335 per sugar? And I think Ms. Coy is getting a number of 507. So there's a discrepancy of $200 like she's speaking about. And then there's a discrepancy of the charges. So are these charges legitimate charges? Are these charges just baked into the calculation to disfranchise the sugarcane farmers of money? And the question then we have to ask then, if the answers provided by ASR BSI is not satisfactory, is there a objective third party that then does an audit to decide or to determine where the numbers fall? And I don't know if that's a sugarcane board. I don't know if there is some arrangement within the industry that then provides a resolution of disputes over pricing, because that's basically what you're having right now. You're having a dispute over the pricing mechanism and some of the numbers within those pricing mechanisms. And the hope is, or we think the best option, well, the best solution would be that this is resolved now, and there's a clear process put in place going forward, such that at the next season there is no issues that are raised, right? So I don't know if we're going to hear from all the stakeholders, and we're going to hear from the government, from the relevant ministry, as to how they would work this out. But clearly it's something that needs to be done very quickly. Ms. Koi added the additional issue that I've always been saying on this show, Mose, that for a great extent, and I think I heard you talking about it yesterday, we Belizeans, we know we have our iPhones, we drive our fancy car. I'm scared to see how many used cars are being sold all over the street, because that means that that's foreign exchange locked up in those cars. That's what we have to understand. Every used car, crash repaired car that we see on the street with a for sale sign is US dollars is embedded in that piece of equipment. Now, where can we get those US dollars from if we're talking about a legitimate economy? If we're looking at improving the size of the formal economy so that we can push aside the dark side, push back on the informal economy that's creating a lot of challenges, then it's our productive sector, it's our agricultural sector, our sugar cane farmers, our citrus farmers, our banana farmers, our shrimp farmers that generate the foreign exchange that comes into the country. We've spoken about the tourism product, which is doing fantastic, and we expect that this year is going to be another fantastic year for tourism. The American economy is roaring, the level of unemployment is down, Americans feel extremely wealthy, they're the biggest part of our tourist market in terms of both investors and in travelers, so there's no expectation that tourism is going to have a bad year. There should be no expectation unless there is a H1N1 blow up or something, nefarious that comes along. But we know that most of those tourism proceeds are lodged outside the economy and don't come in mainland. And so we have to look at our productive sector to generate that foreign exchange. It's not that the tourism sector is not bringing some foreign exchange in, because the owners of these hotels and these resorts have to pay the local market, the local labor costs. They have to pay their local energy bill. So there is some receipts that comes in, but usually we say that's a small component of what is being made. So we know that it's the productive sector. So if there's a discrepancy that hits 35 million US dollars or 40 million US dollars, which would have come to the farmers, we know that's 40 million US dollars that is not coming to our economy. So that's very important, because ESR is an internationally owned company, and therefore you would expect that the owners of that company would get repatriated in US dollars. So if there is a pricing discrepancy and the sugarcane farmers lose, then we lose. We lose on that 35 million US dollars that is absolutely needed in our economy at this time, given our high debt level, given all the things that we are challenged with. So this has to be worked out, quickly. And I think it needs to have national hearing, meaning that we would want, and we've said this before, our University of Belize has to start to play a role as a national university and has to be involved in these kind of conversations, because that's the only, rationale of a national university, to be at the center of the most controversial or the most important decision making. And so I would expect that they should have a role involved. Is there a formula that can be developed that would ensure that anybody can see the numbers and say this is what the farmers should get, And I think it's important from even an investor's perspective. Let's say we wanted to invest in the sugarcane industry. You and I wanted to invest in a farmer. We'd want to know what's the risk, right? And we need to know how we'd be able to calculate our return for our investment. So it's something that should have. Another thing I think most that is important, the farmers need to get some ownership stake in that ESR BSI. I'm telling you, if I'm just a farmer just pushing something into a mill, and that mill is a black hole, right? Strategically, as a country, we need to ensure that we have a stake in that processor, right? We need to have a stake in the processor so that we can sit along that board and we can see the numbers coming to the board of ESR and being able to determine ourselves, are these numbers right for us on the down chain. So those are strategic things that I think, maybe not immediately, but we definitely within this year, next year, we should be aiming at having some equity stake in the ESR BSI. And that would be, I think, very important for the country.
Unfortunately, every time, and maybe I have to stop, or maybe it's something that I have to stop, feel like every time I talk about something like that, I have to remind myself that we have a lot of urban listeners and viewers.
Yeah.
And I have to explain why we have to talk about the sugar cane farmer situation. It's not, obviously, people in the north, if they hear a conversation going on about sugar cane, it's relevant to them.
Yeah.
A lot of the economy is based off of the cane industry.
Yeah.
Everything is spinning off of that. That's a major revenue earner.
Yeah.
But it's an important revenue earner for the entire nation.
Yeah.
But we have shown that we are unable to connect the dots to see the relevance. And then I can get up every morning, Irving, and talk about the crime and violence, because the crime and violence is there. It might not happen today, but it might happen tomorrow, or it might happen the day after, but it's there. But if you start to look on the structural issues and the decisions which might seem unconnected, like I remember my late physician, the great Dr. Leroy Tiega, used to say, listen to me, say as a doctor, say if I see somebody get knocked down, I can see that their foot is broken. That's the obvious thing. But the first thing I want to make sure is that the person's breathing passage is okay.
Yeah.
The foot we can see and we can take care of, but I need to ensure that the person's life is not being jeopardized by something that I am missing. That some of the structural issues which impact us on a very significant amount are not obvious to the naked eye.
Yeah.
We assume that tomorrow is going to be like yesterday. But go down Albert Street today, or go down King Street after you pass east of the canal side, and you will see something that I can't imagine that I would have seen in my lifetime, where you have stores with their shutters down marked for rent. This is Albert Street, you know. Albert Street has for rent stores on it. Something has happened. All right? Obviously, some factors have taken place and the landscape there has changed, because that's something that you never ever see. For rent space on Albert Street, for rent space on King Street, something is happening there. But it speaks to how quickly the landscape can change. A lot of what has happened when it comes to economic opportunities in Belize City has to do with decisions that have been made, structural flaws that exist. Look, for example, at the fact that we're in the middle of school season. Most of the uniforms that we are going to be getting for our children have been made in Melchor. That's a problem. That's a problem. That's a national problem. Because one, it represents foreign exchange going out. Two, it eliminates a potential income earner for people that you can train to make the uniforms that you can't get away from. You have to, so thousands and thousands of children will have to get new uniforms for September. And another country will make it. Other seamstresses or tailors will make it. Other factories will make it. We are not making it. That means that that opportunity to make it, and for that person to not have to sell Mexican weed, because we don't even grow the weed.
Yeah.
So we are importing another man's weed. It's an illegal industry, which means it has no rules. So then we must kill ourselves to make something off that industry. We have to kill ourselves. But how many different potential revenue earners, legitimate, legal revenue earners, right here, because of just the natural demand that exists, the inevitable demand that has to take place, we are not a part of it.
Absolutely, Moses.
And so it might seem like such a small matter. It's not a part of the national discussion. how can we adjust things so that we can incentivize people to say, well, maybe like 30 years ago, people used to make a living sewing. That used to be something that bringing dollars to the home. Instead of selling weed, you're selling pants and shirts, and that's the skill you have. You got a sewing machine, you're investing in it because money will be made off that. Yeah. It's not being made anymore. So you cannot understand the long-term impact when you have an economic loss. When you take one lick from an economic opportunity, it come back and bite you big time one next kind of way. And I think it's important for people to start to connect these dots and understand that we are all connected. The economy is like, if there's a leak in the north, it's going to impact you here in Belize, it's going to impact you in Griega, it's going to impact you in Punta Gorda, it's going to impact you in San Ignacio. That's just how the national economy works.
Absolutely.
But we have a call, we take the call and then we go to break. Krem, good morning.
Good morning, Brother Mose. Good morning, Brother Irvin. And good morning, Belize. Major Jones here.
Yes, Major
Yes,
Jones.
sir.
I just wanted to quickly touch a little on the logistics of the sugar. Last week, Sister Sandra called in about what appears to be a discrepancy between the cost of moving the sugar from the port in Belize to the market in Europe and the cost of moving the sugar from the factory to the ship here in the port. There was a study done in 2012 under the accompanying measures for sugar. It was done by a European consultant, and that looked at how we moved the sugar from the factory all the way to Europe. A part of the problem we have is that BSI has an old fleet of tugs and barges. On average, the barges are 38 years old. Now, it would require significant capital investment to replace those barges and those old tugs in order to improve the efficiency of moving the sugar from the factory to the ship when the ship comes to the port. Now, the ship does not come alongside the pier like some other ships do, because they tend to be larger ships. And so they stay out in the harbor, and then the barges are brought, 4 barges at a time, for a total of 500 tons, brought from BSI all the way to the ship. That's 122 miles. And then the stevedores would then take the sugar off the barge and put it onto the ship. This is an extremely inefficient process, but it inures to the benefit of BSI because they're the ones who are responsible for this. They apply the cost, and so they are not prepared, it appears, to make the investment that would improve that process. Let me give you an example. Last year, a ship came to load 32 tons of sugar. It took that process took 79 days. Now, this is absolutely ridiculous. There's no way we can continue with this kind of inefficiency along the supply chain. 79 days to load 32 tons of sugar, where in other ports, people are loading easily 10 tons per day. 10,000 tons per day. So you're talking about 3 to 5 days, and that ship would have been loaded and would have been gone. That also adds cost, because for every day that those ships are in port, you're talking on average about $5,000 to $7,000 just for it to be sitting out there in the harbor. That costs the cane farmers as well. So unless we improve the logistics of getting the sugar to the market, we're going to continue to see these kinds of heavy burden placed on the farmers, because ultimately this cost is deducted out of the cost of the cane, and then the profit sharing takes place after that. So there's really no incentive for BSI to improve anything, and so the farmers are going to have to demand that some efficiencies are built in and improved along the lines. Otherwise, we're going to hear more and more and more of these complaints. And worse, because of the depressed prices of sugar, it makes sense for us to improve what we're doing in order to lower our costs, because if we don't do that, then we're less competitive, and this is only going to get worse. So unless, again, BSI needs to get rid of those old tugs and those old barges, and from your perspective as well, Mose, I'm sure your stevedores complain all the time about the condition of the barges and the risks and the danger it poses in handling the barges, because some of the the canopy don't work, the winches don't work, and it poses additional...
It's not in potential risk, it's in actual injuries that have happened.
Correct, you understand me? So there is really need for us to improve all of this, not just from the logistics and the efficiency of it, but also from a safety perspective as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how BSI handles this. The study is called a study for a floating offshore transfer terminal for bulk sugar in Belize, funded by the EU. And one last thing here, with that though, although it will improve efficiencies, as always, it comes at a human cost, and so we have to look at how this would impact on the demand for labor from the stevedores if we were to go in that particular direction. But I think it's a conversation that we must have.
All right, sir.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
And earlier we were informed about the Central American Women's Volleyball Championship presently going on. Belize plays Costa Rica tonight at 7:30. Tomorrow night it plays Guatemala. That's all happening at the New City Center. And we didn't get the prices, but now we have them $5 for children, $10 for general, and $20 for VIP. Make sure you go out and support our champion ladies as they represent us, Belize on the chess.
Most, you know how they did in the last game, I think.
They won.
They won, so they're 2-1.
Yeah, 2-1.
They won.
So winning tonight and winning tomorrow night would be big for them.
Wow, excellent. I mean, I understand they're playing very good ball. So
yeah, and in fact, the first game they lost, by all accounts, was just a matter of nerves.
Nerves, yeah. I mean, we have to big up our young women for
absolutely. You know,
playing a good game.
I mentioned earlier on about the economic, the consequences of economic defeat.
Yeah.
In the 90s, the chairman of Commandola, early 90s, defended and advocated and pushed and actually was instrumental. But we have Ms. Corey. Good morning again, Ms. Corey.
Very quickly, Mr. Major Jones made a very important contribution just now. And I think discussing the flow chart of workflow processes, this is where this would tie in, right? But something that's very strange is this mode, and Irvin. The equipment that is used for moving the sugar from the mill to the ship belongs to the miller. It belongs to the miller.
Yes, that's what
So when the miller puts it at the disposal of this joint enterprise, because now the charges are joint, they deduct those charges from the total income before the income becomes shared. So that means that those charges are not part of their those charges are combined for both of them and taken out. But let us say the miller had full responsibility and there was no deduction. That would be part of the miller's expenses. Urban, wouldn't the miller then seek to keep his cost at the lowest possible amount?
Absolutely. There is a huge moral hazard in the structure there.
In the present arrangement, seems to me, the miller attaches a rental rate, a service charge. You understand what I'm saying?
Yep.
In addition to the cost, the direct cost of running the equipment, there is a rental fee. I am giving it to you for your use, and so into that is factored a cost of use, a use cost, which if the miller were using that equipment for himself, he wouldn't be doing that to himself at all. So I think personally, I've felt this a long time, these commodity industries, if they are not to end up being good old colonial enterprises, need to be thoroughly overhauled. And that overhauling will rest on bringing together an appropriate national team consisting of different areas of expertise to assess these industries and where they are at now, where you want them to get in X years, Y years, Z years, down the road, and then decide if we're going down that road.
You need focus and seriousness for
Exactly,
that
Papa.
approach. We have not operated with that focus and
Moose,
seriousness.
I just want to, I mean, there's one challenge I think that all of these changes that we're trying to get are very painful and difficult. And there's a high political capital cost. And I believe that's why, to a great extent, not much has been done. Nobody is prepared to pay either the political cost, the capital cost that is involved. Because there's a study, I mean, and I am glad that Major Jones reminded me of that study about the shipping. I wasn't aware of the inherent moral hazard issues on the other side. What I mean by that is that the miller who is responsible for moving the product to the port bears no cost in the cost of moving it. The equipment is his. So there's like you said, there's zero incentive for him to make any kind of capital investment that he's going to bear if at the end of the day whatever he pays to get those sugar from his factory to the ship is borne by the farmers. I mean, it's just like a pass through. So I mean, there's nothing for him to incentivize. So clearly I didn't know. But the study that was done, if I do recall, to create that efficiency, there's going to be a labor cost. Major Jones didn't say it, but there's going to be an adjustment taking place at the port because the efficiency would mean more machinery, less labor, which would mean that there will be a loss of jobs at the port. So that's a political cost there. So somebody is going to say, you know what, I'm not prepared to push this change because somebody's going to lose job, and I don't want to be held accountable for people losing their jobs in a tough economic time. So somebody's going to bear, and if what probably happened in the past when the sugar prices were okay, nobody was looking at these, you know, when everything get maga and meager and everything is tight, then people start to look at every single way of how I can get or I can save. And that's what is happening now, which is a good thing because it forces us to become efficient. You know, when things are competitive, then you understand I cannot take any fat. But what this means is that to improve the efficiency of the transportation system, we're going to have a significant job loss here in Belize. And so somebody is unprepared to move forward. So the study is there. The study is there already. The research has been done. I'm certain it just needs to be dusted off. And probably it has solid recommendations of what needs to be done, invested. Now, I think of what Major Jones is saying. The question is, how do we share the burden of the pain? And that's a question we've always had most going forward. Because we don't think Belizeans are stupid people. You know, we don't think, you know, Irvine and all, we have all the answers. We think that a lot of people know what the answers are. What I think is lacking a lot is the political will, and I don't only mean by the politicians. Clearly the politicians don't want to bring any bad news. Bad news is like death for a politician. You bring your constituent bad news and you basically get fired. But the society as a whole, labor, private sector, you know, nobody wants to bear the political and the economic costs of the sacrifice that we need to make, and so we kind of push it.
Yeah, the problem with it is that sacrifice cannot be selective.
Yeah.
You cannot only be willing to create sacrifice when the sacrifice is going to be bore by the
it has to be shared
by the weak, but you don't do sacrifice up at the top.
So what happens? Because the top is unprepared or politically feel I cannot push the sacrifice completely on the weak. Although we see on the streets, and we were talking about that in our off break, the young men bodies on the street is a sacrifice that the society is paying right now. So we know that there are sectors in the society that are paying the consequence of these decisions that are being made and are not being made. So, but they are, you tend to call that the hapless, powerless masses. So, you know, we see every day another young boy got shot, a young baby got killed, on and on and on. But they're powerless. We are more willing to save the manatee, and our heroes for saving the manatee go on national, international TV, go all the way to Geneva. But the powerless youth on the street doesn't have a voice. And so we can sacrifice them. The politicians don't make the sacrifice, and our middle class, we're not making the sacrifice. But clearly, Mose, there's a time that's going to come, and we know that time is, the bells are tolling, where we have to come to the table, all of us. Friend in the United States, Mr. Arzu, he had made some, we were listening to the show, and he made some input here, and he was making a suggestion that the Cane Farmers, so maybe the Cane Farmers Association should invest in the transportation improvement from the miller to the port, and then make some arrangements in which they control that supply chain, right? Because it's in their benefit to be able to reduce the cost since they pay, and this would be also beneficial to ASR in some regards because they would have a lower cost of production. But he's suggesting that the cane farmers make that investment because ASR has no incentive to do so.
All right. We're out of time. Mervyn, thanks for coming by next week, Tuesday.
For health, strength.
Yes, sir.
We'll be here.
All right. Want to thank the crew, JCR Zoo at Creme Radio, at Creme Television. We have Mr. Claire Flores, along with our director, Ms. Alexi Belay. Belizeans, have a great Tuesday with Health and Strength. I'll be back tomorrow morning at 6:30 for another edition of the WUB, Wake Up Belize Morning Vibes. As always, stand strong, stand firm. For now, we're gone!
Another day is here. Wake up, Belize. Wake up, Belize. We gotta keep moving. Na 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 na. Wake up, Belize. Wake up, Belize. Everybody gotta put their time in. Wake up, Belize. Wake up, Belize. Voice our opinion and place your calling. WB. Be yourself, see yourself. This is a show by people. Belize our hopes so to needless reason. Nobody feel left out. It's the vibe we dealing. Let's find a solution. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Love, respect, unselfishness and cooperation. That's how we need to build a strong nation. We are the people to make the changes. We are the changes. WB. And all the things that will feel happen under God blue skies. And nothing that people get victimized. Let's work together for better. We got to unite. Belize, yeah. Wake up, Belize. Wake up, Belize. Another day is here. Wake up, Belize. Wake up, Belize. We got to keep moving.